Hello and welcome to Notes from Backstage. We're your hosts, Lydia
and Sophie, two cellists redefining how we approach classical music.
We talk about everything from mental health, music school, navigating our careers post-grad, and what it means to find your unique artistic voice.
Join us every Tuesday for a reminder that music is meant to be enjoyed and shared, and that life exists outside of the practice room.
Hi and welcome back to the Notes from Backstage podcast. Today we wanted to chat about accessibility to live classical concerts, what the barriers to classical concerts might be, because we think it might not just be the price point and that it goes quite far beyond that. So we wanted to talk about issues like how we get bums on seats, new people in seats, what's preventing people from returning to the concert hall, and also highlight artists, series and venues that are doing a really good job of prioritising the audience's experience and making it a really nice place to come and enjoy some music. So, Lydia, what do you think the biggest barrier to entry for new audience members is?
I think it's really interesting that you already pointed out that we both agree that it's not just price point, because that obviously can be something that we talk about and that is an issue within the classical music industry. I almost would argue that I think the price point barrier for entry has more to do with education for people that want to be classical musicians rather than people that want to experience classical music and in an audience format, because people, as we see all the time, people are willing to spend money on experiences that they think are worth it. People drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for their favorite live artist that they want to see who's going on tour.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Like, we know that there's an issue with Ticketmaster and these seat scalping sites, and like people are willing to pay a lot of money for an experience that they deem worth it to them. And of course, I'm all about like support live arts. I think that's great. I personally think, and then this can kind of encapsulate a lot of issues within it, the barrier to entry has a lot more to do with lack of education. And what I mean by that is that people don't know what to experience when they go into a hall, and they almost expect to be intimidated. And I think that the barrier for that is much higher. And I also think that it is sort of the responsibility of venues and performers to break that barrier down.
Absolutely. Wow. Well said. Damn. I mean, I was also thinking about the price point, and I remember once I was very lucky to have been invited to a pop concert, and I know that other people had spent at least £1,000 on those tickets, and I was thinking, you know, when I go and see my weekly concert, if I'm at home for a good amount of time, that cost me a tenner, like £10.
Yeah.
So I never really understood that argument. A Labour politician in the UK got criticised for going to see Glyndebourne Opera one day, and she clapped back being like, what, so you're criticising me for spending £30 on going to see a concert?
That's the thing.
Just because it's slightly fancy.
Because it's more of like the status symbol.
The only point of that argument, which I do understand, is that obviously, particularly in places like the UK, most of the concerts are happening either right up north or in London. And so people need to spend money on travel to London and potentially also on accommodation. So I guess the overall experience can be quite expensive, but that's not the ticket price I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the total cost. But yeah, I've never really understood why people use that as an argument.
I understand why it's part of the argument. I just don't think it should be the entire argument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and the same for New York, you can go and get a rush ticket for $20 to see the New York Phil. If you show up day of at the box office or the day before, you can see, I've seen the New York Phil, New York City Ballet, the opera multiple times for under $30. And there's a lot of programs at these institutions where if you're under 30 or if you're under 40, you can get discount tickets just all the time, even in advance. So that's the part where I'm thinking, I don't actually think it's just the price, but people don't know what they're spending their money on. And I think that is more where the issue lies. And I think there's also that status barrier as well, where people, like you were saying with the politician, like people assume that you're going to the opera and that you have to wear a $300 gown and that you're going to the dinner or then you're going to the drinks after. And like, you know, like they assume that the entire thing is just a high status symbol instead of thinking about the fact that classical music started in small rooms for people to enjoy and to dance to. Like, it didn't always have to be this like highfalutin status symbol that we've turned it into now.
Yeah, I love those reels on Instagram where they make like what people are wearing to classical concerts, and it's all sorts of different outfits.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, and I remember seeing another reel about how way back when Mozart had written his operas or symphonies with the idea in mind that people would be playing cards and drinking and eating and talking while they were watching. I don't know where we got to a point where suddenly this whole sitting still and being totally silent thing became a thing, because of course there's certain pieces which really require everyone's full attention and they're so atmospheric if you can hear a pin drop, but it can be so stifling. Even when I go to classical concerts, sometimes I get really dirty looks or shushes from people where I'm sitting totally still and just breathing. I don't know really what's going on. It can get a bit unhinged sometimes.
It really can. And I feel like that also comes down, I think another barrier for entry, to be honest with you, is other patrons. If you're new and you're looking into attending a concert series and you're thinking about who else is going to be there, are they going to make you feel welcome? Because I think a lot of the time, the answer, unfortunately, is no. I actually went to a concert at Carnegie Hall earlier this year. I have played at Carnegie Hall multiple times. I've been to lots of concerts at Carnegie Hall, and I'm a professional musician. Like, I know how to conduct myself in a concert hall environment, right? Like, let's just put that out there for what it is. My behavior is not an issue in a concert hall, whether or not I'm on stage or in the audience. And I was sitting in a box seat. There was an older gentleman sitting next to me, and it was Verdi Requiem. So they had in the program the text with a translation. And I am somebody that I really enjoy reading a concert program. If it's well done, we can talk more about that in a little bit. But when the concert program add something to the event, I really like reading it. And in the US, like, you get a program for free. That's like part of your ticket price. It's not like in the UK where you have to maybe buy it. You get it when you come in the door. And so I'm always somebody that likes to read my concert programs. And I'm also somebody that oftentimes will like to read the little blurb about whatever movement or symphony or whatever it is that's coming up first, and then sort of see if I can hear the things that they're talking about. Like, I think it adds to my concert experience, and I think that's my right as a patron to read the freaking program. I think you can see where this is going, because I was following along with the translations. I'm just sitting there literally minding my business, right? And all of a sudden, this older guy next to me, he like swings his arm in front of my face, and he didn't actually like hit me or anything, but I was taken aback, and I look over at him, and he just does not make eye contact with me and is just still sitting there. So I literally am sitting there thinking, like, did he have a spasm, or did he like fall asleep and then woke up? Like, that was just very, very odd. Like, it was just very weird. A little bit later on, I'm sitting there. I cannot even express to you how quietly I turned the program page.
Yeah, because you're a really nice, considerate person, okay?
And I just think I'm like a normal human, to be honest. Like, it was simply not loud. And I very quietly turned the page because I'm following along with the translation. And he looks at me, he goes, "Stop turning pages."
What?
I was so taken aback. And I look at him and I go, "You can't talk to me like that."
No.
And he just kind of huffs and then like turns his attention back to the concert. But the entire rest of the concert, even though I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong, I was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I was just sitting there being like, are you kidding me? And it really like ruined, honestly, a lot of the experience for me, even though I was sitting there in my head trying to say, like, don't have this be the thing that ruins your evening. But I was just like so taken aback by it. And at the end of the concert, I was like, I'm going to say something to him. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. And that was really, really inappropriate what he just did. And so as the applause is still going on, he turns to come out of the, like, to leave the box. And I follow him and I say, "Excuse me, sir."
Very good of you to call him sir.
Well, it devolves very quickly, so don't give me that much credit. But I was like, "Excuse me, the way that you spoke to me was completely inappropriate and uncalled for. I'm a professional musician. I have played at this stage in this hall many times. But if I had been new here, you would have made me feel totally unwelcome. And I really don't appreciate what you said to me."
Wow, good on you.
I mean, I had 30 minutes to formulate what I was going to say in my head before I said it to him. So I made sure that it was like impactful and said what I needed to say. But again, like, in my head, I was mostly thinking, wow, if I had been new here, I would never be coming back. Because what do you mean I can't turn the page in my program without being yelled at? And so I said that to him, and he was like, "You're being so loud and you were turning your pages and blah, blah, blah." Also, somebody's phone had literally gone off like 2 boxes down from us and he didn't even twitch his head. So low key, I honestly think like maybe his hearing aids were not calibrated well, and so maybe things that I was doing were much louder. You know what I mean? Like, it was just very weird. I was like, he wasn't getting irritated at other things that actually were disturbing it, but then he was mad at me. So he said that, and he started to argue back, and I can't remember exactly everything at this point. I made like a whole TikTok video about it the same day because I was so annoyed. So if you want a more accurate story, go and look at that. Basically, at the end, I said, get the fuck out of here, because I was just so mad. Like, to him, I was like, literally, get the fuck out. Like, and I turned around and whatever. And there's other patrons in this box that are looking at me, and their response is to ask me if I'm okay. Because everybody had seen what had happened and was like, no, that was completely out of line on his behalf. And I did report it to the usher, like to the head usher, and then they took me backstage and I reported it again. And when they asked me for my email so they could follow up, which, side note, Carnegie, you never did, but that's fine. I gave them my Juilliard email address, which I never dropped because I was like, I need you to know that I deserve to be here. But the thing is, I shouldn't have had to feel like I had to do that, because even if I didn't have a Juilliard EDU email address, I should not have been yelled at. So it just like really made me mad. And I just feel like it's such an example of Carnegie Hall didn't do anything that made me feel unwelcome. The person sitting next to me did.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I remember once I was just slumping in my seat too much, and some lady turned over to me and she was like, pull yourself together, you're not at home in your living room. And it just ruined the whole thing. Of course, I just don't understand.
Literally what? There still are a lot of patrons, let's face it, usually older ones, that to them it is still a status symbol. Because I've never met an artist who's been offended because somebody was chilling or reading a program in their hall. People are just glad that you're there.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And also, I feel like, especially, I mean, I wasn't alive then, but I've heard that in the 70s and 80s that classical music wasn't the status symbol. It was just something everybody was interested in. So I don't quite know where that's come from. But I have read a lot of articles about exactly this lately, about how our audience is the reason why interest in classical music is declining, or people don't feel welcome. So there are a lot of really interesting articles out there which I would really suggest people read. There's a very long one in The Guardian. I think there's multiple articles actually, so we'll put those articles in the show notes.
I think it's good to know that other people are recognizing it as an issue, and that to me too is maybe one of the reasons it's top of mind today, is that I think it's a harder issue to address, because at the end of the day, a venue can't really control how people act. You can do what you can in order to put in parameters. Like, it's one of those things that I don't necessarily think he should have even gotten kicked out or anything, but I don't think I should have been yelled at. Like, I don't really know what the perfect answer from the venue would have been in that setting.
Well, I don't know, he's making you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything that isn't against...
I literally wasn't doing anything
exactly.
wrong.
So I do feel people who make other people feel unwelcome should leave. You don't own the concert hall, mate.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's just a very tricky position to be in. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a little bit uncomfortable.
Little? That's horrible.
I mean, I had another friend who was also at a concert at Carnegie. This is not supposed to be a dish on Carnegie. I just think things happen there because people really use Carnegie as a status symbol, and I think that's where a lot of these issues come from, unfortunately. But I had a friend that was also going to a concert at Carnegie, also a Juilliard student, and the concert had not even started yet. They had just started to like barely dim the lights, and a friend of hers had asked a question about the program. Like, she was literally explaining something that was about to happen, and a lady leaned over and like rapped her on the head with her folded up program and was like, shh. And it was like, the musicians aren't even on stage yet. And also, assault ? Like,
you can't hit someone. What?
Yeah, literally. What makes you think you can hit somebody with your program? Like, that's crazy.
That is insane.
That is crazy. And it just makes me so sad that that happens, because, I mean, literally, what a way to make somebody never want to go back to a concert.
The amount of like remorse and or embarrassment you feel for nothing you've done.
Yeah. And then, of course, because it's a classical concert where you can't just change seats either. So say you are sitting next to this person that's making you uncomfortable. If there's, like, in my case, there wasn't an intermission, so I didn't have a chance to go, talk to an usher and ask to be moved or ask for him to be moved. Like, I just kind of felt like if I wanted to hear the concert, I had to stay in this seat and be as still as possible. So it just is like, it just makes you so uncomfortable. And even though I was sitting there knowing that I hadn't done anything wrong, and also knowing that I was going to stand up for myself, because that's just a bit of my personality, the fact that I like can still remember how bad it made me feel, and this happened like 6 months ago. I guess, like, so then my question is what do we think venues can do, and artists can do, and just presenters can do in general, to sort of alleviate that, because I do think there are things that you can do with messaging that help people feel more welcome and help people understand that, like, hey, this environment is meant to be welcoming. And I actually think part of the problem with that, and I would like genuinely love to know your thoughts, because I don't know what the perfect answer is to this, but I don't love it when you go to a concert and the first thing that you see or hear is somebody telling you to turn off your phone. And it's not because I don't think that your phone should be turned on, but the first thing that you get is being told what not to do. And I feel like maybe that somewhat contributes to the you must be silent or else you directly are responsible for ruining the environment. And again, I'm not advocating for everybody's phone being on and, you know, the ringers going off, whatever. But I just wonder if there's messaging that we can do that's a little bit more like welcoming, and that makes people feel a little bit more at ease with who they are and showing up as themselves, instead of already being presented with a set of rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you know, I went to a concert called Classical Mixtape at the South Bank Centre, and they'd set up the evening so that it started with one 20-minute set, I think, played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra. And then within the South Bank Centre, there were 3 or 4 other concerts that were, again, only 20 minutes long, but would loop. So you'd be able to go between all the different halls, corridors, etc., and choose what you want to hear, basically.
Oh, wow. Like a choose your own adventure?
Kind of, yeah.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. And then we all returned back to the main Royal Festival Hall for Philharmonia Orchestra. Something about that, just freedom to move around, but then all starting and finishing in the same place. For some reason, the atmosphere was just so much more welcoming. They started the concert with the presenter introducing the orchestras, talking about the kinds of stuff that they were going to play, how the evening was going to work. The concert was full of young people, and there was a bit of noise, but in general, in terms of that people, you know, they had programs. I think we were allowed drinks in the hall, so there was a little bit of general noise, but everyone was totally silent. Even though people were allowed to have their phones, everyone was really respectful and really engaged and listening. So I just don't believe this kind of stereotype that young people are unruly and not paying attention and or being really noisy, because that's just not true. Maybe there was a bit more noise because Royal Festival Hall is big. There were lots of people in there with their stuff, you know, so there's going to be a bit of background noise, but just having a little bit of noise just made the atmosphere so relaxed. It was just like something had been healed in me. I felt like I could really enjoy the concert, and I don't always feel that way. People who just keep turning and looking at you, and you don't know why they just keep turning and looking at you, because you're just sitting there.
Yeah. Also, can we be so honest? When I'm in a room full of young people at a concert where maybe, like phones are allowed and they don't care if you record a little bit and whatever, and I want to give some shout outs to some of these series and stuff a little bit down the line in the episode, but I am never feeling like somebody else taking their 30-second recording detracts from my experience when you're in an environment where it's okay to exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, at the Met Opera, if you were sitting in the orchestra level and turned up your phone and it had all the brightness on, like, yeah, that would be distracting. But when people have their phones out, they usually are very aware that they have their phones, and so then they never go off. Like, they're not getting random texts or whatever that they're responding to. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, I want to use it to capture 30 seconds of my evening that I'm enjoying, and then the phone goes away, and then it's like literally not a problem.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm gonna be so unhinged now, but I don't think it's ever been a young person's phone going off.
Okay, I'm glad you said it, because I was thinking it. Yeah, literally. Yeah, because I think you're just like, you're more aware of the technology that's on your person, and you're like, it's my responsibility to take care of it. But yeah, I guess I personally, maybe this is my Gen Z coming out, I'm like, I don't think the phones are the problem.
No.
You know, it's who is wielding the phone and what's the environment that we have created for the people with the phones.
That's kind of quite a good segue into another reason why I think maybe classical music isn't as accessible as other genres, because due to the rise of everybody filming everything and social media, I feel like a lot of other genres have been a lot faster at evolving in terms of making performances look visually engaging.
100%.
I did a whole reel on this on Instagram, and I got some spicy comments, let's just put it that way. But all about how pop artists have really embraced the fact that theirs is a visual art form as well. But I don't really feel like classical music has caught up with this just yet. And I'd even go as far as saying that classical music has an image problem, as concerts can still look so old-fashioned and not be visually exciting to watch. I also said 50% of classical musicians say they're too serious to care about looks on stage, that our focus should be solely on the music. But I wish that were the world we live in, but it's just not, you know. But also, that hasn't really been true for the other 50% of us, aka the women, for a very long time. And it's a really hard balance to get right, because loads of people say looks don't matter, but those are the people who are insisting that women must dress and style their hair a certain way so they're not distracting from the music. But at the same time, if you were a woman and you didn't care about how you looked on stage, you'd get like a really nasty review saying that the person didn't make an effort. And I've seen reviews like this, and also the other way, like saying like, oh yeah, the soloist's dress was too sparkly, or her hair was in the way. Or it's a really hard balance to get right, and I'm really torn, because I do think we need to make concerts more visually engaging. I also don't want to perpetuate these unrealistic beauty standards for women, or suggest that women alone should carry this responsibility. But yeah, sometimes I've been to these concerts and I've just been like, oh my god, I cannot believe that they're presenting something that looks this boring.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or am I just like completely unhinged?
No, I don't think you're unhinged at all. I guess my other follow-up query about that then would be, are there ways, and I think there are ways, of making things visually engaging that don't have to do with dress? You know, like when you're able to go see a concert when, I've been to a few where they have maybe paintings that were inspired by the music, or paintings that were painted around a similar time as it. And so sometimes they do, like moving artwork graphics based on paintings that incorporate into the theme of the concert. Like, I think that can be a way of making things visually appealing that actually have nothing to do with how the people are dressed that are on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I have several ideas, but with regards to how people are dressed, I do think the all black thing is not a vibe.
Yeah. I am so anti all black. I mean, I get that if you're in a pit or if you're in an orchestra, like that's kind of its own separate thing.
No, but even for orchestras, I do think that is a bit of a turn off for people who aren't, classically trained like we are. But I mean, I went to see a concert. I really admire what the Aurora Orchestra do. They play everything from memory, so there's not those bulky stands in the way. And then they also do dramatizations of either the process of writing the work or what's going on in the work. They coordinate the lights to flash with the music like they did Rite of Spring, so it would flash red on any of the accents in the dun 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 boom boom boom, and it was so cool. Oh my god. And they also do these things where they highlight parts of the music you should listen out for and instruments you should listen out for and what this thing in the music represents, and they'll often get the members of the orchestra to get up or move to the front of the stage, and just like a bit of movement rather than everyone sitting totally still on stage makes a world of difference for me. I'd love to get together with loads of people and have a collective think, because I don't think I have all the ideas, but I do think we need to make a lot more effort.
I think it's just thinking outside the box, which classical music tends to be very boxed, to be honest, a lot of the times. We talk about people are doing the same programming all the time, and sometimes Beethoven 9 is going to sell you tickets, but is that the only thing that you can program that season? Could we program something else? Another issue that I think really irritates me is program notes that are badly written. I think sometimes they are really poorly written for the audience, and that they don't take into consideration what people's general base knowledge is going to be, and they're not well written for people that maybe have very little base knowledge, who should still feel welcome in that concert hall. So I have just been in so many concerts where I'm reading the program, and I, as somebody that has 2 higher ed degrees in classical music performance, am like, I actually don't know what they're talking about here. Or a really big pet peeve of mine is when they reference other pieces that aren't on the program in a program. And I'm like, that gives no context. Why are we talking about the Tristan chord when this is not Wagner? It's kind of a mark of a poor program note, because I think you can talk about the influence and you can talk about the context that this piece exists without people looking at it and having to Google something else. I think that's really doing a disservice to the music when you can't write it.
I don't even know what the Tristan chord is.
I mean, and say the thing is like, okay, so maybe I know what it is, but that's because, again, I've got 2 higher ed degrees in music performance, and I've had to take how many semesters of music history courses. Like, I shouldn't have had to have a classical music specific education in order to understand and appreciate the program notes. And I think it just, to me, a program note should be inviting people into the music and giving them more context for what's going on. And so when you're actually giving them less context, and I think at the root of that, you're then making people feel stupid sometimes, or like, oh, maybe I really don't deserve to be here because I don't understand what they're even talking about. Like, how can I even enjoy the music if I don't know what's going on? That to me is really a shame. And I wish that people were a bit more strict about their program notes and talking about things like, why did they choose the piece? What's the theme of the program? How does it exist in the context of today's world? Why is it played all of the time? Like, I think there's so many things to talk about that are really, really valuable that do not, and this is the other thing too that I want to make so clear in this episode. I don't think you need to dumb down classical music. You just need to make it understandable. This has nothing to do with dumbing down programs. It has nothing to do with making things of lesser quality. That literally is completely besides the point. And if that's what you're taking away from this, like, you're completely misunderstanding our point, because classical music is literally meant to be, it should be enjoyed and it should be understood, and it has all these things.
And it's a universal language.
And universal, yes, exactly.
And I think you're so right. It's when it's just this weird focus on being very intellectual rather than very emotionally direct, which is what it is. And I think you hit the nail on the head.
I would love to read a program note about how Brahms was in love with Clara Schumann. Like, that to me, interesting. And then you're like, oh, and now I understand like why this has all this longing. And I think you can describe how he put the essence of Clara Schumann into some of his music, and then you can talk, like, I think anybody can follow a love plot, you know what I mean? Like, that to me is context, and that to me adds to it.
I always have problems when program notes are kind of just describing what the piece is. I'm like, I know what the piece is, you know, I'm going to hear the piece, you don't need to tell me what's going to happen. But if you told me what it represents or what could be cool to listen out for and why, then I think it's a great program note. But I don't need to know that the F sharp motif comes back in bar 37. How is that useful?
Right.
Unless you're telling me what it means, then I'm not interested.
No, exactly. Because then if you're saying like, oh, hey, when you hear the horns calling, they're referencing this, that's another way to describe the F sharp motif. Like, the horns are representing the call of the war cry. Like, you can make it understandable.
Storytelling.
Exactly. But if all you're relying on is classical music theory to describe what's going on, you've lost it. And unfortunately, you've lost me. And I can generally understand at least some of what you're talking about, but I'm like, I'm out.
But I remember you gave me some really good advice, like a little under a year ago when we first met, about, you know, when you're talking to the audience and you use a musical term, you should always follow it up with a definition.
Exactly.
And that has made the world of difference whenever I talk. And I just think that should be totally standard knowledge.
And there's ways of doing it too, again, with what we've been saying this whole time. Sorry, I'm like actually getting heated about this because I care so deeply about this. But there's ways of doing it too that are not dumbing it down. If you're on stage and you're describing the difference between, let's say, pizzicato and arco, and you say, so this pizzicato section where I'm strumming the strings like this, and then the arco section where I'm using my bow, you've then given context, and now people understand what you're talking about. It's that easy. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated.
Exactly.
And people want to know. That's the other thing too, is like, people are genuinely hungry for knowledge. Like, they are excited to learn new things. I've had some TikTok videos go randomly viral because I was explaining how false harmonics work, and people were like, that's so cool. I had no idea that the cello could make that sound. But why would they if nobody's ever explained it to them before?
It's so true.
Instead of being like angry about it, I think there's such a wealth of knowledge and resources to be tapped into that can actually be made so exciting. And I really genuinely believe that.
But it was like this Aurora Orchestra Rite of Spring concert. I would say I'm a big fan of the Rite of Spring, and I've heard it played at least 3 times before I went to this concert. But I had no idea about all these things, and that this bit represented that, or what Stravinsky was going through when he wrote it. And then when they played the whole suite through in the second half, after having made this kind of map of the piece for us, I just felt so excited. I was honestly like, that childlike wonder was back because I had something to grasp onto. And even, you know, like you said, I also went to Saturday music school. I have an undergrad and I'm just doing my master's. It's not like I don't have a musical education, but even then, I don't think I've ever had more fun at a classical concert or felt more able to navigate the piece. And I just wish this was more standard because it was wonderful. I've seen they're doing the same thing with Mahler 1 and 2, I think, at the proms. I'm going to both of them.
Oh my gosh. Wait, this is such a good segue though, because we also wanted to talk about venues and artists and programs that we think are actually doing a really good job of it, because there are really, really cool people doing some really, really cool shit out there. So let's talk about the proms though, because you and I have both been to the proms. For people that don't have a context, the BBC Proms is this really big festival that happens in London at the Royal Albert Hall every year. What's really amazing about it is, yes, you can buy your season tickets and you can have your seat in the Royal Albert Hall and blah, 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 blah. But day of, they open up tickets for promming, and this is the real way to experience the BBC Proms, is that you go, you get a ticket. Now you can also do it online, which is a perk, more accessibility. I will say, in my experience, sometimes you can get through the queue faster if you just like go in person, and then there's generally not a line. But anyways, you can go online or in person, and you get an £8 ticket for a standing room seat where you can literally get as close to the stage as you want, as long as you line up early. And I think standing is the best way to experience it, because then you're the closest to the musicians that you can get. And the Royal Albert Hall is so huge. I actually think for a lot of concerts, if you're sitting in the back, you don't have as good of a sound experience.
I heard Elgar once and I was sitting all at the top and I was like, where is the cellist?
Yeah, exactly. So I honestly think it's better, and you just get better sound if you're standing. £8. You can't tell me that's less expensive than your coffee. You can't tell me that that's not worth it.
Well, maybe not quite your coffee, but if you were to get a matcha or something, then definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
No, coffee's getting extortionate these days. Anyway, that's another episode. I would love to talk about coffee for a whole episode, but yeah.
And with the proms too, you are hearing amazing classical music presented in a way that makes it feel alive. Maybe because there's such, like, the promming culture is kind of incredible. It's hard to describe if you haven't been there, but the first proms concert that I went to was Yo-Yo Ma, Kavakos, and Maniacs playing Beethoven and Brahms piano trio.
Just like, your casual concert with the best people. Okay.
But that's the thing, because the proms makes it feel like it's accessible. Like, it makes it feel a little bit more casual, because you also, because people are standing and it's kind of a little bit of like a classical mosh pit situation, you don't have to feel like you're dressing up for it. Like, I was wearing sneakers for everything that I went to because I knew that I was going to be standing. When we went there before the concert, the line was around the block to get in. And I was like, this is actually so cool. Like, people are lined up around the block to hear classical music. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the coolest thing in the world to me. And to me, it really proved that, again, people want to hear classical music. They just want to feel welcome to hear classical music. And then another concert that I went to that same prom season, this was a couple years ago now, was the Orchestra of Paris. I'm not even going to try to say the French name because I'm going to butcher it, but it was the Paris Orchestra with Klaus Mekela conducting. They did Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique, which is a piece that I have studied in school, have heard many times before. Like, I am as familiar as someone's going to get with it without having like written it or hardcore studied it. But you know what I mean? Like, I am familiar with the piece, right? And I always had been like, it's a cool piece. Honestly, I was mostly there because Klaus Mekela was conducting and I had seen him conduct before, and he is so good. He's just such an incredible conductor. He's young. He's so like energetic, and he's so musical. Like, I've just found that when he's conducting orchestras, no matter where he's conducting, he's so respected by the musicians that are there. And I just feel like you can feel that on the stage as he's conducting. So I wanted to go see him conduct. Honest to God, I felt like I blinked and it was over because it was so engaging. I was not even aware that I was standing for an hour. Like, I was like, this is so incredible. And I think for me, what made a difference in it was, first of all, just like, again, the promming culture was just like really cool to be a part of. We were standing so close to the stage, could see, like the rosin flying off people's bows. At the same time, I think maybe because it was, like this one-off festival performance from the orchestra, they were dressed in their all black. They had their like concert tails on, all of the things. but they were having fun. You could see the musicians smiling at each other on stage. You could see the percussionists like sort of doing little like air applause with their mallets when one of them did something well. With Symphonie Fantastique, there's a part where there's like offstage trumpets, and so for this concert they had them go up basically like into the rafters of Royal Albert Hall to play these like horn calls and stuff without actually letting out a whoop. Like you could see them cheering on their colleagues who were playing the music and coming in and off the stage and stuff like that. And I think for me it was the fact that they were enjoying it. I was like, this is so entertaining to watch. And they didn't have any other visual effects. They were dressed in their all black, but they didn't have this like austere posturing about them as they were playing. Like it was just such a joyful music experience. And that's like to this day one of my favorite concerts I've ever attended.
That's so lovely to hear. Oh, so nice.
Are you going to the proms this summer?
I am. I've already made a note of all the proms I'm going to because I was just so impressed by the programming this year. There's, for example, just a few which I made a note of. A Turnage, Sibelius and Britain prom on the 28th of July. Then there's Dobrinka Tabakova and Korngold, which sounds like amazing. Then there's the Aurora Orchestra doing those Mahler concerts I told you about. And those are just the ones I'm going to be going to that week. There are also some relaxed proms that I really want to go to in the middle of the day, with everything from this contemporary composer Meredith Monk to Radiohead and
cool.
Caroline Shaw, all in the same.
Love Caroline Shaw.
Exactly. I absolutely love her music.
She's amazing.
Dudamel's conducting some Gabriela Ortiz.
Oh yeah.
Which looks like it's going to be amazing. They have this prom, which I'm really excited about. It's called Bond and Beyond. So it's all the music from the James Bond films. I could go on forever and ever. But yeah, I'm going to be there in August going to all these proms, guys.
Yeah, and the proms run from like end of July through beginning mid-September. So if you happen to be in the UK around that time, like it's worth the trip. And you can often go to like a couple in a day, because sometimes they have an afternoon and an evening one, or you can go to a couple or a few over the course of a weekend.
They have late proms as well after. I have made a note of some.
Yeah, I went to one of the late proms it was an Eric Whitacre premiere, and it was like a 10 p.m. start. So they literally do them like all times of the day, all different types of music. Like I just named like a vocal orchestra and chamber music concert. You just named a bunch of orchestra concerts. Like they have a ton of variety in what they present as well. So like I really firmly believe that there is something for everyone. But here's the thing, if you know, like a lot of us don't live in the UK, I unfortunately will not be making it, I think, to the proms this year. Look up what's going on in the city around you with like outdoor concerts. There are so many orchestras that do outdoor concerts where you can get a lawn ticket for $12, $15, and take a picnic, sit outside, and sometimes they're even free. Like actually the New York Phil does free summer concerts in parks around New York City. Free. You just show up. That's all you have to do. You show up and you get to hear the concert for free.
The Oslo Phil does that as well, and it's one of my favourite concerts of the year, the outdoor one, in August I think it is. It's so fun, and so many people can obviously fit into a park, so the atmosphere is amazing because there are so many people there.
It's so fun.
Another really cool concept that I love, I need to translate it directly from Norwegian, like it's called Lie Down and Listen. Or we have this thing in Oslo called Culture Evening or Culture Night, where there's concerts going on until dawn, basically. We do all these sets where we play and people lie down to the music, and somehow people lying down and not sitting and watching just creates the most relaxed and amazing atmosphere.
I was going to say, that feels so serene just hearing you describe it.
Yeah, that is something I'm really impressed by. And then also there's this other festival in Oslo called Interpuls or Interpuls. They had all sorts of different people come. They had the Norwegian Chamber Orchestra and then this indie artist who had got Nico Mooley, the composer, to write arrangements of his songs for the chamber orchestra. In addition to this, they had someone doing live kind of animation videography projected all around the church, so combining videos of the players with all these beautiful colours and shapes. And so it was kind of like a very synesthetic experience in that, you know, the music would impact what colours the projections would be, and it was just so beautiful. In addition to which, there were just sets, so they were about 20 minutes, half an hour long, and then you could go buy a beer. and then another one, and just breaking it up and letting people come and go whenever they please. I wrote on my Instagram, I think, many mini concerts with beer breaks are now probably my favorite thing. I love them.
That actually really reminds me that I have some friends in New York that started a series called Lyrical Libations, and it's these concerts that they do across New York City in bars. And the way that they structure it is that they've paired each of the classical music selections that they're playing with a custom cocktail from the bar. And so you can go up to the bar and order the Haydn or the Price or the Montgomery, and they've done it so that it incorporates elements from the music into the drink.
Oh my god, that is just so cool.
Isn't that so cool? And the way that they've done it too
so cool.
is like, it's usually a $10 cover, and then you just buy the drinks that you want. So it's not like you have to buy $80 worth of alcohol to go to it. You could also go and not even drink if you want to. I've gone and like gotten a mocktail or whatever. So you don't have to drink to go to it, but to me, the thought and creativity behind it. And they always do like a break halfway through the set so that you can go and get more drinks for the second half of the concert. I really like what they do, where I don't actually think I've been to one where they've done a full piece of music, but they play movements. And so it moves quickly. You know, maybe the movement can be like 10 minutes long or something, but you just feel so like refreshed, aware, and like awake. They are so popular.
Oh my god, I bet.
People are packing into these like back gardens of Brooklyn bars to hear Beethoven string quartets.
Love that.
And this is such a good example. I have very few friends in the city that are not classical musicians, just because like that's kind of my world. But I met a really good friend that I actually, funnily enough, met on a plane to London, but she lives here in the States. She lives in New York, and she's not a classical musician at all. Like, I'm the only classical musician that she knows. And one of the first times we hung out in New York was me inviting her to one of these concerts. She had never been to a classical concert before, and she was like, that was so cool. Like, she loved it so much. And I was like, see, people like classical music. They just don't think that they will for reasons that are not true. Or, you know, maybe they are true, but we need to change it. Because I was like, proof that people want to come to these things, even if they don't know anything about it. And yeah, I just shout out Lyrical Libations. And I think just look up concerts that are happening near you, especially this summer. This is kind of also appropriate for the time of year that we're in. I guarantee you, like Indianapolis Symphony, I'm originally from Indiana. They do Symphony on the Prairie concerts where a lawn ticket, I think, is like $12. And bring a picnic, hang out, enjoy some music. There are things happening around you that are not only in New York, not only in London, that are going to be outside free concerts. Just like look up what your local symphony or community orchestra is doing.
I think Berlin has loads.
Yeah, exactly. I promise you there's stuff out there.
I've already mentioned them so many times, but I think the South Bank Centre is just so underrated. They're doing incredible things, both with all their festivals. I think Meltdown, which is curated by Harry Styles this year, actually is running right now, which is so cool. My favourite one is Multitudes Festival, which is an incredibly interdisciplinary festival. At one concert they had both heavy metal anthems and then Wagner at the same time. So they do a heavy metal anthem, then some Wagner, then some Mahler, then some heavy metal, and it was really cool. Like, I think the conductor who they hired used to be a rock drummer, which literally tells you everything. And then they did a lot of these performances. I think they did a performance of a Messiaen symphony called Tarangalila, which is epic. And then they had a live animated film going on at the same time, and they also had Liszt's Dante Symphony, which is Imagining Hell. It was performed live alongside a film about climate change, open pit mining, deforestation and melting ice. That was in the foyer, it wasn't in the concert hall, which I thought was really amazing. And then they also had one, it was all about the music that they'd used in Alexander McQueen's fashion shows, so there was this whole fashion element to it as well. Anyway, I could keep going, but it was just so refreshing to have this interdisciplinary festival. I think the South Bank Centre are doing incredible things with their programming and getting more young people into classical music. I think they have a crazy percentage of new people booking every year. I don't remember exactly what the percentage is. But with regards to Oslo, the Oslo Phil do these really cool sing-along concerts, I think with Mozart's Requiem last year, which was a big success, where they play the film score alongside the film concerts. And then this thing which I do every August when they release the programs for the new season, it's called Pick and Mix, where you can go and buy 6 tickets for 100 kroner, which is about £9. So you can buy 6 tickets for £9 a ticket and you can sit wherever you want. So I always get the best seats, which maybe normally cost, I don't know, £50 or £60. We should probably also talk about our friends at Fidelio.
Oh
Lovely
my gosh.
Raffaello.
Yes, we did want to give a shout out to this incredible venue in London. It's in Farringdon, London, and it's owned by a conductor violinist who is also Italian and I guess then also loves to cook because he is like the chef for this cafe. And I played a recital there earlier in the spring in April, and it was so fun because like you bought your ticket to the event, but then they basically had people order their drinks and aperitivos and all the things so they could have like their little appetizers at the start. And then I played a concert in the middle of the cafe. And I mean, it was a full like hour something program, like it was a full concert program. And then afterwards, people stayed for another 2 hours because they ordered their pasta. And they were just hanging out and drinking and eating. And I got to walk around and like chat with everyone. I got some food. People were drinking. Like it just had like Italian restaurant vibes, but in the middle of London. As a performer, it was so interesting because I realized that I couldn't look anywhere without making eye contact with someone because people were sitting so close. But if you are okay with that, and I was, it was so fun. It was like such, like the vibes were so good. And they do some really cool events with people coming in. They talk a lot about sort of stereotypes of classical music and why do we perpetuate the stereotypes of classical music. Yeah, would highly recommend. They were a very cool venue.
It's that thing of that really intimate experience in that you're very close to the audience, very much that kind of salon experience.
Yes.
If we go way back when. But
yeah,
I love venues like that. Also, you know, being able to have a drink during a concert or a little bite to eat, I feel also makes it feel so much more relaxed. So yeah, I think they're doing wonderful things. They're one of my big inspirations for Fidelio Cafe. So yeah,
honestly, this has been such an inspiring and invigorating conversation to have with you.
Likewise.
I just think it's so cool. I'm so inspired by people that are doing cool things. Like I just think that is so cool to see. And you know what, if you're listening and you're like, man, there's nothing like that around me, you make it. Who's to say that you can't start your own series?
I'm going to be starting my own series from the autumn, but we'll talk about that in another episode.
That is so cool. See, Sophie starting one. Some of the ones that we've been shouting out are things that like our friends are literally running. So like, don't let the fact that it doesn't exist near you stop you from creating it. Like, if anything, that just means there's a gap in the market that you should be filling. And yeah, go hear some live music. People, we need young people in concert halls. They are meant for you. Like, we deserve to take up space in these spaces. So, and yeah, I'm just so glad that we had this conversation today. And I hope that everybody gets to hear some fun music this summer.
If you want to write us during or after the summer with some really cool concert experiences you went to, we'd love to hear. It's always so inspiring for us to hear about ways people have made the entry point to classical music a little less intimidating, and or how we can perhaps, you know, keep these sorts of ideas in mind when we're thinking about how we're going to put together our concerts. So you can write us at notesfrombackstage@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram, Notes from Backstage Podcast. We love hearing from you. Your emails and messages make our day. Thank you so much for all your lovely comments so far. It really keeps us going, and it's why we're doing this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and depending on what platform you're listening on, please feel free to subscribe or give us a thumbs up or a review. It actually really, really helps us with pushing this podcast out to more people. And the more people that the podcast goes out to, the more accessible we can make classical music, which is really a huge driving force behind why we even started the podcast in the first place. So I think that's all we've got for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.